In this episode, we're going to focus on tokens and sessions, because in modern cloud identity, they are often the real thing an attacker wants, even more than a password. A password is often just a way to get a session started, but once a session exists, tokens act like portable proof that the user is authenticated and authorized. If those tokens are stolen, copied, or kept alive too long, an attacker can operate as the user without repeatedly logging in, and that can bypass some protections that focus only on login events. Session risk is also sneaky because a system can claim strong authentication while still allowing long sessions that remain valid for days, or token refresh behavior that effectively keeps access alive indefinitely. The right goal is not to eliminate tokens because they are necessary for modern authentication, but to control their lifecycle so they have limited value, are scoped appropriately, and can be revoked quickly when risk is detected. Strong lifecycle and revocation discipline means planning from the start how tokens are issued, how long they last, how they are refreshed, and how they are terminated. Our goal is to understand why token risk is so important, what lifecycle discipline looks like, and how revocation becomes a practical safety tool instead of a theoretical feature. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyber.author.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. A good beginner definition is that a session is the period during which a user is considered signed in, and a token is the proof that supports that session and allows access to services. In many cloud environments, a user authenticates once and then receives tokens that are presented to different services to request access. Those tokens may be short-lived, but the session may still persist through refresh mechanisms that replace expiring tokens with new ones. This is convenient for users, but it can be risky if the refresh process is too permissive because it allows a session to continue without fresh verification. Token and session risk is essentially the risk that an attacker can reuse or extend access without needing to reauthenticate. That risk grows when tokens are valid for long periods, when tokens have broad scope, or when tokens can be used from many contexts without constraint. It also grows when the organization cannot revoke tokens quickly, because then a compromised session remains active even after a password reset. Understanding this basic relationship between sessions, tokens, and refresh is the foundation for all the discipline we want to build. Lifecycle discipline starts with issuance, meaning how tokens are created and what conditions must be met before they are issued. Strong issuance discipline means tokens are issued only after appropriate authentication strength, and that the strength can vary based on sensitivity and context. For example, a low-risk application might accept a normal sign-in, while administrative access might require stronger verification before issuing tokens that can reach high-impact services. Issuance also includes embedding appropriate claims and scope into the token, so it represents the correct user identity and the correct authorization boundaries. A common beginner mistake is thinking that once a user is authenticated, all tokens are equally safe, but tokens issued for different purposes should not be interchangeable. Tokens should be bound to the right audience and purpose so they cannot be reused across unrelated services. When issuance is disciplined, you reduce the chance that an attacker can take one token and use it everywhere. The next lifecycle element is lifetime, which is one of the simplest levers for reducing risk. Short-lived tokens reduce the value of theft because the token becomes useless after a short time, even if you do nothing else. Long-lived tokens increase the attacker's window, allowing them to use a stolen token for hours or days, which is plenty of time to explore, steal data, and establish persistence. However, lifetime decisions must balance usability, because users cannot be forced to sign in repeatedly for every small action. This is where sensitivity-based lifetimes help, because you can require shorter lifetimes and more frequent reauthentication for high-risk access, while allowing smoother experiences for low-risk tasks. Another important idea is that session lifetime is not just token lifetime, because refresh can extend the session. If refresh is unlimited, then short token lifetimes do not help much, because the attacker can just keep refreshing. Strong lifecycle discipline treats refresh behavior as part of lifetime, not as an afterthought. Refresh discipline is about controlling when new tokens can be obtained without full reauthentication, and it is where many session risks quietly hide. A refresh mechanism is meant to keep legitimate users working without frequent interruptions, but it can also keep an attacker working if they have gained control of the session. Strong discipline includes limiting how long a session can be refreshed without additional verification, sometimes called a maximum session age, which forces periodic reauthentication. It also includes requiring fresh authentication for sensitive actions, even if a session exists, so that a stolen session cannot immediately perform high-impact tasks. Another important aspect is context, where refresh might be allowed only from expected devices or environments, making it harder for attackers to refresh from a different location. If refresh can happen from anywhere with no friction, then a stolen refresh capability becomes a long-term access channel. For beginner reasoning, it helps to think of refresh as a second door, and if you secure the front door but leave the refresh door wide open, you have not really reduced risk. Scope and privilege discipline reduce token risk by limiting what any one token can do, even while it is valid. A token should not grant broad access to many services if the user's task requires only narrow access. For example, a token meant for a single business application should not also grant access to administrative consoles or key management functions. Scope can include which services the token can be used with, which actions it permits, and which resources it can reach. Privilege discipline also includes separating tokens for different contexts, such as having different tokens for user access versus administrative access, rather than one token that covers everything. This separation reduces blast radius, because stealing a low-privilege token does not automatically give the attacker high-privilege capability. It also supports better monitoring, because unusual use of a high-privilege token becomes easier to detect. The exam often tests this logic by presenting scenarios where tokens are too broad or reused across contexts, and the correct answer involves scoping and separation. Revocation discipline is the safety valve that makes lifecycle controls practical during incidents. Revocation means the ability to terminate sessions and invalidate tokens so they can no longer be used, even if they have not expired. Without revocation, your only option after suspected compromise might be to wait for tokens to expire, which may be too slow, or to change a password and hope it helps, which might not stop active sessions. Strong revocation discipline includes having clear triggers for revocation, such as detected anomalies, suspected phishing, device loss, or role changes. It also includes ensuring that revocation actually propagates to the places where tokens are accepted, so that invalidated tokens are rejected quickly. Another important element is operational clarity, meaning responders know how to revoke access quickly without making chaotic changes that break other systems. Revocation should be a routine capability, not a rare last resort, because incidents demand speed and confidence. A common misunderstanding is assuming that changing a password automatically ends sessions, but many systems separate password credentials from active sessions. If an attacker has a valid session token, they may continue to operate even after a password reset, depending on how the system manages sessions. That is why revocation is so important and why session management must be included in incident procedures. Another misunderstanding is thinking that short-lived tokens alone solve everything, when in reality a stolen token can still cause significant damage in a short time if privileges are broad. The correct mindset is layered. Short lifetimes reduce window, scope reduces power, context restrictions reduce portability, and revocation provides emergency shutdown. Each layer covers a different failure mode, and together they reduce both likelihood and impact of token misuse. For beginners, this layered view helps you avoid simplistic answers and instead choose controls that work together. Monitoring supports lifecycle and revocation discipline by helping you know when to take action and by proving that action worked. If you detect unusual sign-ins, unusual session behavior, or anomalous token usage, you need the ability to revoke quickly and then confirm that the suspicious activity stops. Monitoring also helps validate whether session policies are effective, because if you see sessions lasting longer than expected or being refreshed in unusual contexts, that may indicate a misconfiguration. Another useful aspect is tracking session issuance and revocation events, because it provides evidence during investigations and audits. When lifecycle rules are clear and monitored, you can explain not only that sessions are controlled, but that the controls are enforced and reviewed. This is the kind of evidence that survives scrutiny because it shows time-based behavior, not just a policy statement. Strong discipline is not only having a rule, but being able to demonstrate the rule is followed. When you bring it all together, reducing token and session risk is about treating access as a temporary, managed state rather than a static yes or no permission. You apply lifecycle discipline at issuance by requiring appropriate authentication strength and scoping tokens to specific purposes. You apply lifetime discipline by choosing short token lifetimes where appropriate and by limiting how long sessions can persist without reauthentication. You apply refresh discipline by controlling where and how sessions can be extended and by requiring fresh verification for sensitive actions. You apply scope and privilege discipline by separating contexts and limiting what tokens can do, reducing blast radius even when tokens are stolen. Finally, you apply revocation discipline by making session termination fast, reliable, and integrated into response practices. On an exam, this mindset helps you answer questions about why token theft is dangerous and what controls actually reduce that danger. In real cloud environments, it helps you build identity systems that remain usable for end users while being far less forgiving to attackers who try to live inside someone else's session.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.